Okay, in this video, I'm going to walk through the steps to remove the head off a Model A engine. So you'll need a few things to get started. Now on my Model A, I'm doing another project, well, I'm replacing the head, but as part of this project, let me see if I can back off a bit. I removed the hood already, so removing the hood will make this a lot easier. It's probably required. I didn't really research that, but just remove the hood. It'll make life a lot easier. And I'm also removing the radiator because I'm working on something unrelated, but you do not have to remove the radiator, just so you know. You will have to remove the hood. This head will come off, so this water outflow valve here and the tube it connects to, you're going to have to disconnect that. But I'm working on something else, so I took the radiator off. I don't think it's required to remove the head, but you will have to take some parts of the coolant system apart. Okay, you will need to get started the right size wrench. So this is an 11/16 size wrench with a box end. And you'll want some penetrating fluid to loosen rusty or old bolts. I'm using this PB blaster, but really you can use anything that is equivalent. So there you go. And what you do to start off, when you start, oh, let me get my hammer. Now, if you have a socket wrench with a long angled handle, that will help to get leverage. These are on here very tight. I think factory specs to bolt these down is 55 pounds. I've heard and read things online. Some people go 60 pounds. I think if you're within 55 to 60, you're probably okay. You don't want to over torque the head because it can warp or it can compromise the integrity of the head and you'll get leaks or other bad things happen. But to loosen them off, the first thing you'll do is you want to spray this fluid on every nut. I think there's 14 of them. You also have to get these as well. These count. There's actually studs that go through here to the block. So there's 2 on this water output manifold valve, and you want to get all the ones on the head. Again, I think there's 14 of them. You can check a Model A manual, instruction manual, repair manual to get all the numbers off them. When you spray that liquid, you need to let it sit overnight. Don't try to rush. So let it penetrate overnight. Then when you get these off, what you want to do is use the box end so it doesn't strip. And you want to take a hammer and just slowly loosen them. And you'll do that to all of them. And it turns out I was able to use this box end wrench on all the nuts. So if we go out a bit, I was able to get a good grip here, 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 here. These 2 in the back near the firewall, I was able to get a good grip here. There's one here by the distributor. I can get a good grip here. There's one here. This is a little tricky, but I was able to get this next to the spark plugs. Oh, and by the way, you can remove the spark plugs. It makes it easy. I didn't have to remove them, but you have to eventually take them out anyway before you take the head off. And then these along the back. So what you'll do is you'll loosen them, but not all the way. So these are loosened a little bit, but the nuts are still on the studs, because what we're going to do next in my next video clip is I'm told one way to help loosen the head come off the block is you don't run the engine, so you would disconnect the coil here, but what you can do is try starting the engine with the sparks in the head and just let it turn over a few times. And the idea is that the pressure from the pistons will help push against the head, but you still have all the nuts on, so it may loosen it a little bit, but the head won't come flying off, which you don't want to have happen. So I'm gonna try that, see if it works. I have other methods to try to get this head off. Everybody tells me it's not easy to get a Model A head off, so we'll find out. Okay, it's been a while since I took the first video clip of taking the head off the Ford Model A. I've been doing some work on this engine in between. So one thing, if you notice from the previous video clip, is that the engine block is now painted. So I took it, sanded it down, removed some other stuff, and it's painted very nice. I will paint the new head. I'm not painting the old head. That's why it's still on here. What else was I going to mention? Okay, so the next step is in getting this head off. I have to get this distributor off. Another quick tip or check you can do as you're taking everything apart is look at your spark plugs. So just like any other automotive spark plug, you want to check and see that that they're consistent. So these represent 4 different cylinders on the engine. So if one of these spark plugs has a discoloration or a lot of oil, or it's burning very hot relative to the other cylinders, that'll give you an indication that there might be something wrong with that cylinder. You'll want to check, these are relatively new spark plugs, but you'll want to check the gap on them. I can't get that in focus, but and you want to make sure that they have sharp edges. If it's worn, you can use a small filing tool to make them sharper. So just a good thing to do as you have everything apart is just take a look at your spark plugs while you got everything out, and then, you know, if you have corroded or dirty connections or tips, just clean up metal parts as necessary that contact the distributor. Okay, a quick update. I was getting ready to take off the head, and when I double checked the bolts, the nuts and bolts on the head to loosen, I missed this one right here. So it's right by the distributor, and I thought I had loosened it, but I hadn't. So I just put some penetrating liquid on it, and I probably have to let that sit a while, so that's going to delay my project. I put the spark plugs back in, and you got to tighten them. Not super tight, but you got to make them tight, because the method I'm going to try to use to get the head off is start the car and see if the pressure from the cylinders going up and down loosens the head. I've never done this. I'm hoping it works. If it doesn't, I got some alternative ideas. This is the cable from the ignition, so just make sure this is out of the way. You want to insulate it when you're starting. You don't want to, like, well, don't want any sparks here. Probably wouldn't cause any major damage anyway. And what was the other thing? Oh, and as I was taking a few of these out, I noticed, let me see here. No, where was it? Here? Okay, there's one here. When you start taking the nuts off the head, you may notice that the studs, so the what the nuts connect on the threads, if you notice that, is this doing it? Yeah, if you notice here, let me see, that stud is moving with the nut. So that's not how it should be, but it's not the end of the world. Later I can show you. It's the same way I took, I had studs here in the manifold, and there's a way you can, it's called double nut them, you can get them out. It's not a big deal. Okay, here's where I am so far trying to get the head off the Model A. Trying to turn the engine over with the spark plugs in. Unfortunately, it did not work. It didn't even budge that head. So I now proceeded to, I loosened all the head nuts a little bit more. Something new that I added, although I haven't really used them yet, these are called engine eye bolts. So what they do is they screw in where the spark plug holes go. You can get them at most Model A online stores for parts. And I may or may not, I'm trying to think if I'm going to use those or not. What else did I try so far? What I did was, when I took the water pump off, I was trying, there's a lip under here where the metal sticks out a bit. I was trying to get a piece of wood. Is this going to show up? I was trying to get a, let me put that over here, and hammer it from the bottom, so the wood protecting here, trying to hammer up to get it off. That didn't work. I had to scrounge around my garage. I don't have a full service garage, so I just have bits and pieces of things here and there. So what I found was, I just happen to have this pipe for other things. I use it to like as an extension for ratchets and things. So this is just kind of like a pretty, not scrap metal, but you can get this at, in fact, this is a 1¼ inch pipe by 12 inch. It's a nipple, I guess. But anyway, it's a thick piece of metal tube. So again, 1¼ is that going to show up here? And I want to use this hole here, so where the water pump goes, there's no threads or anything here on the head. So what I did was, I'm trying this. I wrapped one end of the pipe in a rag and put it in the head this way. Well, it went in easier the first time. Hold on. So, just like a little protection here. So, that's a little bit of leverage there. But then, I was again trying to lift it by hand, whatever. I just didn't, you know, I didn't have a good leverage point here. So what I did was, I also have, this is a jack. So I cut a piece of wood, let me get this out. That's a 2x4. So it's actually sitting, it's not on the fenders, it's sitting on the frame where the radiator mounts on both sides. So I just cut it to fit right inside the fenders on the Model A. And then what I'm going to do is, with this hydraulic jack, I set it on top of the 2x4 that's sitting on the Model A frame. And then I take this other piece of wood and I'm putting it here. And so what I'm hoping to do is get leverage by pumping the hydraulic jack and seeing if this puts pressure on this steel pipe, which will push up on the head and hopefully lift it up. So I don't know if this is going to work, so let me, and I'm about to run out of batteries right now, so let me try this real quick. Can I put that like that? All right, so here we go. Okay, so just make sure that's steady there. Make sure this is centered. Make sure this is on here. Good. Alright. That is going at an angle. I was not expecting that, but I will hold it. Okay, so there's some pressure on it now. So I'll just slowly, I don't want to break anything. So I'm just gonna, so far the head is not, oh, okay, keep going. I hear noise, but I don't think it's the head. I don't see the head. Oh, that didn't sound good. Oh, I think it might have got a. So, I think the wood slipped off a bit on the side of the fender. I don't think it did any damage there, but let me stop the video and try to revisit this again and move the wood around a bit. Well, this idea didn't quite work. It was a good idea. It had a lot of potential idea, but what I found was as I put pressure on this pipe here to put pressure on the head to lift it off, it was actually lifting, because it's on the frame, it's not pushing against the bottom part of the block of the engine. The engine mounts, like, the engine has, a bit of, it was actually lifting the engine off the frame, which is not what I wanted. And it wasn't putting as much pressure just concentrated on the head. So what I really need to do is think of a way, there's a spot right here. I might be able to put something here and leverage against the head up here, and that wouldn't lift the whole engine off the frame of the car. So that might be something I try next. But so far, I am stumped. Okay, I'm going to show you the crowbar method I tried. It didn't work. My head is pretty secure on there. I'm going to have to do some more work. But I read it online. It's a good idea in theory, and I'll show you how it works. So if you have these eye bolts here screwed into where the spark plug holes go, these studs are actually go through the head into the block. So remember earlier I said I need to get leverage on the head against the block to pull it up. And so one method you can do is you could take a crowbar, and you can either do it on this side or this side, but what you do is you put it through the eye hole of the bolt, and once you have it through this eye hole, you get a grip on one of these nuts. What you do is you screw these up so they're about flush with the top of the stud, and then you just angle it up. And so what you're doing is, like for example, if you do it, actually I think, let me show you. And you can get you can't get an angle on every nut, but let me show you one I did here. So I think I tried this one. So if you can see that nut right here, I got a good angle right here on the fender on this side. So what you're doing is when you lift this up, and you get a rag over here to protect your firewall, the pressure, when you pull up, you're putting against the eye hole up, and it's pushing down on that stud, which gives you leverage to push up. But I tried pulling on this really hard several times, and it didn't even budge at all, so that didn't work. And then on this side, the fender gets in the way, but you're able to come over, if your head is not as bad as mine is. I was able to, from this side, was it here? Yeah, on that one. So, and you can move these a little bit. So I was able to line up on that nut. And again, I'm not the strongest person in the world, but I was putting a lot of force on that, and it's not, that head is not coming up at all. So I went ahead and soaked the studs again. So I soaked the bolts with penetrating fluid. And now what I'm going to try, I saw this online. Let me bring the camera over here. And by the way, I read about the rope method. I read that, so several people have tried saying, put soft rope in the cylinder where the spark plug goes and turn the engine over. I've read that that's not a safe way. You could throw a rod. I don't know the details, but I'm trying not to use that method. So I saw this guy, is his name Rich, on the internet. There's a guy, him and his dad worked on a Model A, and I'm going to try this method next. Let me show you what this is like. So what I did was, let me get this out of the way. I put the water pump back on to get some leverage here. I went ahead and put, can you see it in the video? I put the alternator back on, I laid it down, and I tightened the brackets. That bracket's tight, but I also, if you notice, I put a rag here on the fender, so I laid the so I have an alternator on mine. If you had your, I guess if you had your generator, would this work? I don't know. But anyway, there's a natural place here. Just so happens you can get a 2x4. Then I cut a few more. So now I'm pretty close to the water pump. And there's a lip right here where the head comes out to the water pump. And then what I did, I thought I had a steel wedge, but I must have lost it along the way. Anyway, I went and bought one. You can buy these pretty cheap. Anyway, can you see this? So just a solid metal wedge. This is a 5-pound. So what I'm going to do is start on one side, like here, and get it close to the lip here. They need a heavy hammer. So not a carpenter hammer, but something heavy. You know, sledgehammer, small sledgehammer could work, but what I did was I got, this is a 4-pound hammer, so it's like a mechanic's hammer, engineering's hammer. It's not the most high quality one, but I just need to bang a few stuff on there. And by the way, in case also if you mentioned, I did bang the head on the side. I banged around the head several times. That didn't loosen it either. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to, can you see? Oh, you can't. This this headlight bar is probably in the way. But I want to try to do. Let me go over here. Oh, let me just pull up over here. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is hammer here on the side. And hopefully, and I tighten that water pump down on the head. So I'm hoping the wedge will put pressure on the head here. And these blocks are against, the wood blocks are against the lower block of the engine here. And I'm hoping that just pops it up. So we will, so we'll see if that works. I'm going to shut the camera off for a second and then come back shortly afterwards. Okay, I am very excited because I have made a little bit of progress. Little, but still progress. So I hammered on this side of the steel wedge. It got crooked a little bit, but basically it did slightly separate the head from the block. So if you look, it's hard to see here, but this lip right here, that wasn't there before. So if you go all the way to the back, you know, and down here, actually that might have separated a little, but that's pretty flush. In fact, I just painted so you can see there's no crack at all there. So on the back side, it hasn't given free yet, but if you go run the length towards the front, you'll see as we get to the front here that it started to separate just slightly, but it is, I think it's coming off. So I'm going to keep working on it. Now what I have to do next is, now it's oddly not, if I go over here, over here it's, this way. Oh, actually, okay, so I thought it didn't separate, so it is separating over here. I might, what I'll do is maybe get the wedge out and try to hammer it from the driver's side this way. Now, that's under a lot of pressure. I got to figure a way to get that wedge out without damaging anything, but that's a small, compared to the challenge of getting this head off, I think I can find a way to get that wedge out without messing anything up. So this is the way to go. So this, again, just showing you a little more detail. There's a natural place here on the block where a 2x4, if you don't have an alternator, you could probably rig up maybe something here and then just stack wood, and then the very final part, use a steel wedge with a heavy, I'm using a 4-pound hammer. So this is, and believe me, I'm trying, I've been trying everything. So I will also soak, the head nuts again, so that might help too. So anyway, it's about time for dinner. It's a good time to stop. Okay, I am still excited because I'm making more progress. So since the last video, you can see that I've got the wedge going this way from the driver's side to the passenger side. And the crack, let me see, can I zoom in there? It's definitely becoming more visible, so more gaps. So if you look there, you can see that that's progress. And then what I did was I got the crowbar out, and I'll show you that, and I can see that the gasket, it looks like it's a composite gasket. It's not a copper gasket. Original Model A head gaskets are copper. If I was keeping the original Model A head, I'd probably, I would definitely keep copper. I know there's pros and cons of composite versus copper, and I'm not going to argue, I'm not going to get into that debate here in the video, but I'm moving to a higher compression head, and the parts place that sells that head, they recommend I go with this special composite head, which is not copper, for a better seal. So I'll probably do that because that's what they recommend. And they sell the heads, so they should know that. Anyway, but if it was a copper head, I think I wouldn't have this much challenge in getting it off. But anyway, what I did was, now the crowbar is helping a little bit. So what I did was on this eye hole, I got a good grip on that nut right there. And then I'll try to be quiet, but when I was lifting it up, you could hear the gasket sealant, like the glue, the adhesive, you could hear it start to peel apart just slightly. So I'll be real quiet. Maybe, I don't know if I can pick up the sound on the camera or not. Actually, no, probably not. But if you look, if we zoom in on the head, there. So now if I put that back out, you can't see the crowbar, but you'll see when I lift up using this method of a eye hole bolt against one of the top of the studs, hopefully you'll see it move a little bit. It's still really stuck on there, so all right, let's try. Okay, here we go. And I can't get great leverage on this side of the fender. Well, I probably need to get some better leverage, but anyway, that's a lot of work. So this is good progress. I haven't got to the back of the head yet, but step by step.